if you were to take shorts or what you're getting from like Meta or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, which platform is currently winning? Obviously, YouTube's winning, but shorts has
No,
its own fund. Oh,
this
where are you
is
making the
an
most
interesting
money?
one. Maybe it's a little insight, a little secret that we have. But for the last 4 months in a row, which is crazy because this didn't happen any of the last 2 years, for the last 4 months in a row, we've been making more like ad revenue off of Facebook, almost double on Facebook than we've been making on YouTube.
Disruption. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Creative Disruption. I am your host, Ricky Ray Butler, and I am so excited about our guest today, a good friend of mine, Dan Markham from What's Inside. How are you doing, Dan?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. You really created your own little vertical and category for yourself and your son Lincoln with the What's Inside channel. Would love to just get a brief history on how did you start it? What were the beginning days like? And then how did it become what it is today?
Yeah, it's so funny because it feels like it was yesterday, and it feels like, but in the YouTube world, it was a long time ago. Like, we became YouTubers before kids in elementary wanted to be YouTubers. And I know there's people like Marquez Brownlee that have been on YouTube since like 2009. But basically back in like 2014, Lincoln was in second grade. He had a second grade science project, and he was like, Dad, I want to know what's inside of sports balls. What if we just cut them open, put them on a poster board? And that was his science project. And everybody had to go that night, just put a poster board up. And that was basically it. So instead of just being that dad that sometimes I am, where you like just go to the internet and like print out pictures of it and like, here's the inside and the core of a baseball, I was like, let's cut these things. I went to Ace Hardware. I'm terrible with tools. And I like cut the things open, and I filmed each one of them because I saw at the time that people searched for questions on YouTube more than they searched on Google. And back then in like 2014, that was kind of like a aha moment and a big thing. People probably know that a lot more now, but back then I was like, that's really weird because I use Google for everything. So I made every one of them into a video.
And why is that? You think it's just because videos are more transparent and there's just an advantage of learning things faster?
Yeah. Like if I'm like, how do I fix my kitchen sink? Like you can read something, but if I can watch a YouTube video of somebody fixing it, and I feel like back then YouTube in a way was less of a bunch of influencers that were putting out tons of content, vlog content, really viral type stuff. And it was more like a utility, like here's this is how you fix this is how you do that. And that's where people would go for it.
Right.
And so I was hoping.
How did you get to this point though, where Lincoln has a science project where he wants to cut, a ball in half to see what's inside? How did you take it from there to like realizing that there's an opportunity on YouTube?
It was interesting because we posted them. He went to his school, and at the end of his presentation, it just said youtube.com/Lincoln Markham. And that was the channel. And that's still the channel. If you type in Lincoln Markham, it goes to What's Inside. And we let it sit there for a year. And I kind of like, I clicked the monetization button because I had a Google AdSense account, but we didn't publish anything else. We had a bunch of family videos on there. And it was about 12 months later. It was like in December of that year. We got $4 in revenue in one day. And it was off of these What's Inside videos. Somebody would watch a home run by a baseball player, and then it would be suggested what's inside of a baseball, and they'd click on it and we'd make money. And I was like, Lincoln, do you want to make some money like for college or something? How about we just keep cutting things open? And he's like, sure, Dad, let's do it. So that was kind of like the aha moment, like, oh, you can make money here. I'd read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it's like, have assets that are working for you. And I'm like, if I could make like 200 or 300 videos of cutting things open and have them just making money overnight, that $4 is going to add up to a lot. So that's kind of how initially it started before I realized that.
How many views did that video get before you started uploading more frequently?
It wasn't even that many views. Like it didn't take that much to make $4. It was across the 5 videos of like What's Inside. And so, yeah. And once we started making more videos, I realized that like you actually have an audience that wants to come along with you. You have to cultivate that. You can't just throw videos up and just let it hit the algorithm and try to make you money, which was originally kind of the thought of it. And that's when we kind of like actually learned to really enjoy it and love it, where we got to interact with these people and get to know our subscribers and make videos that they give us suggestions on and that we can like feed to that. So
that's great. Well, our first time meeting, you were still doing medical cells. Right. And you and Lincoln, it was like more like just a side hustle or side project. When did you come to the conclusion that this is going to be something that's going to be very lucrative and very successful?
we were doing our videos and it was great. And we'd do these like brand deals where we would make like $1,000 for getting somebody 3 million views for a mattress company or something. And I remember going to this conference, this YouTuber conference, and Devin Supertramp spoke, and he broke it down. And I was like, wow, I can't believe he's sharing all this. And he says, I make 70% of my revenue off of brand deals. I make 20% off of AdSense, and I make 10% off of licensing my content. And I'm sitting there like doing the math, looking at his channel, the millions and millions of views. And all I did at the time really was just the AdSense side of it. And we didn't get that many views, but it still was a good amount of money. And I'm like, if he's making that much, that brand deal side is huge. And that's when I started looking out. And that's like kind of how I met you and your company at the time. I was like reaching out to whoever does brand deals for YouTubers and being like, hey, we provide some views and maybe we could work something out and do a brand deal. And once I got our first big brand deal, which was with you guys, and that was huge. It was like more than a quarter of my salary for the year in one video that we put out. And so that's when I started having that aha moment. I'm like, if we could really integrate these brands and continue this and it seems sustainable, then I would actually be dumb to stay at my day job, even though it was super secure. I enjoyed my job. I'd have like a pension, all these things. And finally, I just said, I'm going to take 2 years off, see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, I'll go back to my job. And that was kind of like the moment where I stepped aside, and we'd already had over 1 million subscribers. So it was kind of late in the game, but as far as like when some people quit their jobs, but that was kind of the point when I was like, all right, let's try this out.
So you want to do it in a very calculated way where we can mitigate risk. And
exactly.
It's worked out for you. And that's amazing. And it's interesting you bring up, Devin, because actually Devin was like the leader of like the Utah scene, which was really big early YouTube days, where, I think it was like one of the biggest communities of creators at the time. And I remember that he used to do these free lectures and conferences just to really motivate other local creators to create and to keep with it, which, I think made a lot of benefit. But
right.
It's interesting, we did a lot of, Devin's brand deals. And when he was at his peak, we did a lot of stuff when it came to like video games and recreating these video games in real life, like Assassin's Creed Parkour. Or
such a good video.
Yeah, that was definitely an epic. Or we did stuff with also films and other types of products as well. It's interesting today. It's still very similar. But now that we have 200 million creators out there, 68% of creators say that they're making more money from brand collaborations than anywhere else. Is that still the case with your channel? Have you figured out other ways of driving revenue outside of brand deals that's actually overtaken it as a percentage?
Brand deals are still the driver. They're still the biggest bucket right now, but it seems like there's always different ways to make money off of like the ad revenue. Like the latest thing that we've been doing to make money off of thing is everybody's trying to keep up with TikTok. And so whether it's Facebook or with their reels or whether it's YouTube with their shorts, and there's been some bonuses that they have paid where they're still not doing really advertisements in there, but we've been able to chop up some of our old content and mix it in with some new short content that we make. And some of that revenue has been really lucrative. And then even Snapchat is still offering a bonus every single day for whoever the top people are. They take $1 million and they split it up among the top views. And so like, it's interesting to take some of our old content that's been up for 7 or 8 years, but making a few really creative cut downs and posting those as reels right now, or as shorts, or as the Snapchat story or whatever you call it, and actually able to get a little bit more money on that. But going back to Devin, like the thing that Devin used to say is that most of his job was educating these companies and like actually having conversation and explaining why would you even use a YouTube creator or an influencer. And it's nice because talk about pioneers, like he kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of it. And I would imagine when you started your company, it was the same thing. It's like explain to these companies. Still, I would imagine there's companies that are like, why? What's the value? We just did a brand deal yesterday. We just published it yesterday. It's the first ever influencer deal that this smaller company had ever done. And it did really well. Like they sold so many and they were very hesitant at the beginning. But more and more these days, it's more of, like you said, it's the companies understand the value of YouTube creators or influencers or TikTokers. And it's just kind of deciding like, where do we want to go with that? What type of campaign do we want to do? Who do we want to use? And from a creator side of things, there's more competition. And so we have to make sure that like our value, it's not just about getting that deal, but it's let's make the video that hopefully gives a big enough return to the brand that it's a win-win. Like obviously we get paid, but maybe it's not a one-time deal. And whether it's us getting money for that or another creator down the road, like we want to make sure that we do a good job and like actually give them a return on their money. Otherwise it's like, you're not going to see the deal, or they may not work with other creators, which kind of hurts the whole ecosystem.
Wow. No, that's very helpful. Random question. So not including, YouTube's traditional AdSense, if you were to take shorts, or what you're getting from like Meta or Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok, which platform is currently winning? Obviously YouTube's winning, but shorts has its own fund. Oh, where are you making the most money?
One. This is an interesting one because I don't think this is going to be the same answer for a lot of people, and maybe it's a little insight, a little secret that we have, but for the last 4 months in a row, which is crazy because this didn't happen any of the last 2 years. For the last 4 months in a row, we've been making more like ad revenue off of Facebook, if you add up like the revenue from the ads and then also the bonuses from the reels, we've been almost double on Facebook than we've been making on YouTube. And what's interesting is this month,
and that's not YouTube Shorts, that's YouTube
ad revenue. And I'm not counting brand deals in that. Brand deals still take the cake and you make the most with this last month off of that. But just looking at what comes in every single month, and just from the ad revenue side of it, just from the videos, Facebook has been winning. And I don't think a lot of people know that that's kind of there. So that's been a nice little surprise this year.
I've only seen that in one other case, and that's with like Glad Baby, but they are, primarily a Meta or a Facebook creator. And, we're one of those early, channels that got to really test a lot of the new features of monetization on Facebook. So Facebook is the leading horse right now in the race when it comes to rev share. That blows my mind, to be honest.
It is a weird one. And it's interesting because we ended the year pretty weak, the last quarter on Facebook, and the beginning of the previous year was pretty strong. And so when January came and employees came back and we're like, all right, what should we do here? Let's put some focus on Facebook. Let's see if we can get it back and hopefully get some revenue there from it. And then it took about 3 or 4 weeks. We figured out a few little things once we dug deep, and it's funny, some of the stuff that takes off on there that you wouldn't expect to take off, and that stuff that continues to do well 3 years after we posted it there. So yeah, between the bonus, and that's something that is open to everybody. When you open up your Instagram and you're a creator and it's like you're posting a reel, and it's like, would you like to be part of the $1,000 bonus this month? Well, I don't know that I'm allowed to say like how much they go up, but they do go up higher. So if you get a certain number of views, whether you're using the Facebook tool for putting up your reels or the Instagram tool for using your reels, they do have a bonus structure in place for creators that you can like apply for and potentially be a part of. And then every month they reevaluate whether you're going to be a part of that. So that's a portion of it, but then just the regular monetization that's open to everybody. And what's different than I think some people that are on Facebook is all of ours is 100% organic. We don't pay for views on Facebook. We're not running ads in front of certain people. It's all organic on there. So that has definitely been our like surprise of 2022, is that the Facebook has driven that revenue side of it.
So Facebook started driving this revenue this year after just a couple months.
Yep. Just this year. December, November, October, September, we're actually really slow on Facebook. Really slow for us, at least.
Which is bizarre because that's like the holiday season where you'd expect,
right,
higher revenues. So when you say Facebook, because you're interchangeably like using Facebook and Instagram, is it mainly Instagram, or are you making more money from the actual, Facebook?
We don't really do anything. We don't make it. We post on Instagram and we post some reels on there, but we really make no revenue on there other than sponsored posts where we post stories or reels. But it's really that the ad revenue side of it isn't as strong as what I see on Facebook. And it's interesting because when we first saw at the beginning of the year, and we saw everybody moving over to short form content and being incentivized from different platforms, and we saw some pretty big creators that have been on Facebook for a long time, making longer form content, switching entirely to shorts. And as much as I see that being a trend and you can make their bonuses, we kind of decided as a team, we're going to do a hybrid approach, because you got to think long term. And even though there might be some short term money in some of these like short form content platforms, if you look at the actual business model and when they do their quarterly earnings, it's going to also be about how much they made off of ad revenue. And long form content and videos is really what drives that ad revenue for any of these companies. And so if that's kind of like a piece of advice that I'd have for a creator, it's worked for us this year because we had a couple of slow months with our long form content, but we continued to go with it, share our older content, post our refreshed newer content on there. And then finally in the last, I'd say 45 days, the long form content started to pick up. And so I think that, yeah, following the money and like what is important to these platforms that's key. You got to follow what's important. And if they're big on shorts, I know a lot of YouTubers were reluctant to even post shorts on YouTube. But you still got to do the long form content. Think more long term of like where they're making their money.